All right, let's talk about it. How to close down your law firm. Now, closing is closing is closing is closing. I'm going to give you specific examples about how to close down your law firm. I'm going to share with you how I've closed down the law firm that I've just closed. As of yesterday, we signed the engagement letter as of last night, both myself as well as the engagement partner at an international law firm. But what I want to share with you, first of all, is that closing the law firm is very similar, I would say, to closing the accounting firm. Closing the law firm is very similar to closing down the board, right? This is all about, again, what industry are you going to consolidate, or what is really your business strategy, right? If you're using more of the Dan Pena roll-up model, or if you're really consolidating an industry, then you have to have a lot of great reasons why your industry is ripe for consolidation. Hopefully the margins are high. Hopefully there's lots of motivated sellers in your industry, or you know that there's a lot of retirement age owners. Hopefully there's a lot of fragmentation in your space, right? These are all things that just give you a compelling set of reasons why it makes sense for a law firm to join you and partner with you to help you in your roll-up. Moreover, you really want, when you're speaking with these law firms, you really want to, speak with conviction that you will be successful. It's not a matter of if you're going to be successful, it's a matter of when you're going to be successful. But also, you really want to be able to answer any of the big questions they're going to have. And I would say some of the big questions the law firms are going to have when it comes down to the make or break point is, one, what's your source of capital? How are you going to get it? How are you going to get the money? Now, I can tell you from my venture that we have a whole bunch of financing options, whether we use agency debt, conduit loans, bank financing, debt funds, whether we use seller finance, whether we use equity players or almost more of an angel type of investor, right? Whether we're investing at the parent company level versus at the subsidiary level. And so what this means is really I'm able to share a lot of different financing options with the lawyers. And so what this means is that the lawyers say, hey, wow, do you know what? This guy's thought about a whole bunch of ways to get money. And this is really important if you don't have capital up front. For example, in our group, we've yet to fundraise. So if you've yet to fundraise, yet you're trying to close down a top law firm, you better have a whole bunch of ways that you're going to be able to get money. You better be able to articulate those different financing options that you have, and you better be able to speak with confidence in your regards to the certainty that you have that you'll indeed get the money, that the money won't even be an issue. Again, I always share that we're not focused yet on fundraising and capital because we're building a world-class foundation, starting with our board and then extending to our accountants and lawyers so that we can achieve the success we're after. That really has worked very well for me when the money issue comes up. And then the other thing that's really important is you have to know a lot about your industry at this point, I've really found. When you're talking to lawyers, these are bright individuals, and they're going to have questions about how are you going to be successful? What's your specific acquisition strategy? Why this? Why that? And moreover, it's almost better if you can answer their questions before they have to ask them, right? When it's coming to the make or break point, maybe you have 1 or 2 partners or 3 partners in a meeting, or you have 2 or 3 partners on a phone call if you're doing a conference call where it's kind of the decision-making time. It's really important for you to say, hey, maybe you guys have thought about this, maybe you haven't, but let us share with you the big concerns we have insofar as making sure this is a success, right? It's saying, okay, when we're acquiring this type of an asset, here are the 5 things we're looking for to make sure that we make a great acquisition at the beginning, right? Or here are the 7 things that we know we have to look for in due diligence to ensure that we do a successful deal here as soon as possible, right? So what I'm really getting at is you better know more about the industry than they do. If you know more about the industry than they do, you ultimately can teach them about what you are looking for to be successful. And when you're in the role of teaching them the necessary steps for you to be successful in the future, right? What you guys need to do as a startup group to move forward, then you're going to be a lot more successful than if it's almost the lawyer saying, have you thought about this? No, I haven't really thought about this. Have you thought about that? No, not really sure about that. Right? You better know more about your industry than they do. And I hope that's self-explanatory. Now, let me share with you how I closed down the international law firm that we'll be working with, and then I'll talk about other ways that I might have tried to close down the law firm had it not gone the way it did. Now, first of all, as I talked about in the last video as regards to the law firm, right? Because there was the how to recruit a top law firm or how to recruit top law firms. That was the older video I shot about this topic. Now it's how to close them, right? So if you recall in the last video, how to recruit a top law firm or something very similar to that title, you'll recall that I told you that one of the individuals on my board brought an international law firm to us, and he had a great relationship with one of the partners at that international law firm. And so what really happened is I had to he warmed him up. I jumped on a call with 2 of the partners on the line, and I basically closed it, right? I just hammered at our goal and our intention. Hey, look, we're building $1 billion portfolio. We're going to build this portfolio or I'm going to die trying. And I'm a young man. I'm 27 years old. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's the roadblocks that we're going to be able to sidestep by doing this, this, and that. Here's our acquisition strategy. Here's why we're doing this versus that. Here's how we're going to fundraise. Here's how we're going to change our strategy once we grow. So AKA from 0 to 10, our first 10 acquisitions, we plan on doing something like this. Maybe from acquisition 10 to acquisition 50, we'll do something like this. And then at that point, we'll be at this stage, in which case we want to do an IPO. Here's how we think we're going to do it here, right? So it's knowing your business cold. When you are obsessed with your business, you're studying, you're learning, you're researching, you're talking to your board, you're talking to accountants, you're talking to lawyers, you're talking to industry experts all day long, you're just living and breathing your industry, then you're going to know more about your industry and your business than the lawyers. And that's what they want to hear. Ultimately, when you know a ton more than they do, they think this guy's super motivated. He has an incredible team behind him because at this point you've built your board of directors, right? He's extremely motivated and passionate. He has an incredible team and he knows a ton about the industry. So we like this guy. Yeah, we'll do it. Right? So for me, after I jumped on that one call with the two partners, as well as actually the other lawyer on our team, my lawyer called me afterwards and on the board, right? And he basically said, hey, these guys seem ready to roll. Because what I'd actually told the partners on that call is I said, hey, look, let me get back to you guys probably the beginning of next week. I want to talk internally with the team and we'll get back to you soon. Now, because I had actually incentivized, and I believe I talked about this in the last video, I incentivized the lawyer, one of the two lawyers on my board who brought that international law firm to us. I incentivized him to do so by giving him more equity if he were able to successfully recruit those top law firm and ultimately get us that engagement letter that was signed, which he did, right? So he reached out right after. He said, hey, look, I think they're ready to be closed. What do you say? I talked to the partner he knew, what do I say? I talked to the partner I know really well. I won't use names, but what do you say? I talked to Billy Bob. Billy Bob doesn't sound like a lawyer's name, but you get what I'm saying. What do you say I talk to that partner and get him to draft an engagement letter and sign it? Would you be ready to go? And I said, yes, do it. And so in short, next thing you know, 2 days later, I had an engagement letter. Now, we negotiated for 2 or 3 days about one or two of the items. I had the other lawyer on my team. This is, again, why I have a big board. I have almost 10 people on the board. So I had my other lawyer review it, and she had 1 or 2 things she wanted to square away. But ultimately, we signed the engagement letter and done. We closed the thing. What I'll say also is that I was talking to other international law firms. And I'm not going to use their names as well, but I was talking to 3 other well-recognized international law firms on top of the law firm that's international that we closed with. So what I'm saying is I was in discussions with multiple law firms. Again, it's the law of large numbers. It's giving yourself leverage. If you're only talking to one law firm, you're in a place of scarcity. You need them, right? Whereas if you're talking to multiple law firms, then you're in a better place. And so that's really how we closed it up. Again, I leveraged and used the board. Again, that individual came to me, one of the lawyers came to me and basically said, Jason, I want more equity. How can I get it? And we agreed that if he got that top law firm and really put it on a silver platter for me, that I would give him more equity. He did, and he earned himself more equity. As soon as we form the company, he's going to get a much bigger stake than he would have gotten before. So that's something you can do. However, I would say traditionally what you're going to be doing is really the classic way of recruiting an accounting firm and a law firm, which is, I'm not going to talk about recruitment in this video. I already made a video about that on both the accounting side and on the law side, so you can refer to those videos. But ultimately, closing is closing, man. It's selling with certainty, and it's saying, this is a winner. We would love to have you on board. What do you say? And usually they're going to jump on board. What I'll also tell you, however, is that you want to be really clear about how to make sure that you don't have to rely too heavily on the success fee basis. And this is something I would encourage you guys to think about for both your accounting firms and your law firms, right? In those discussions, especially when it's getting to the business end of the negotiations, I would talk to them about ways in which you can be very economical up front. Basically, how can you not use the law firm's services up front until you do a deal, so that you don't get a huge fee that you've yet to pay off. And so what I'm really getting at is this, right? If you have a lawyer or two on your team, see if they can draft some of the documents, right? See if they can draft the LOI. See if they can draft some of the documents that you're going to need to make that initial acquisition, right? See what you can get your internal team to do. Same thing with the accounting, right? See if your internal team can help you with tax structure. See if your internal team can help you with the financial due diligence, right? The more you can do in-house between the conception of your idea until the first acquisition, the more comfortable a law firm or an accounting firm is going to be in closing with you. Because if you go to the law firm and say, yeah, we're going to need you to do everything. We don't have a clue what we're doing. We need you to do everything. And by the way, we're not going to be able to pay you until we close a deal. So what do you say? You sound good to you? Right? You're on the phone asking that partner. He's probably going to say, click. He's not even going to respond. He's just going to hang up on you. Whereas when you go to the law firm and say, hey, look, we're really confident that we'll be able to do 90% of the work in-house. We will need you to form our company, right? Because that's something I believe a lawyer or an external law firm would have to do for you. Right, so yeah, we'll officially need you to form the company, but that's something associates can do, which is basically a junior lawyer, and so that's not going to be super expensive, and we can actually form the company right before closing the deal so that we can get you paid right away, right? So in other words, you're thinking from their point of view, and this is so important in negotiations and persuasion and otherwise in getting what you want, is making sure that you're giving the other side what they want. So what does the other side want when they're going to work with the startup? Well, obviously, they want a startup that looks like it's very likely to succeed. Again, so you better be able to explain why your venture is going to go from the startup phase to a successful business phase as soon as humanly possible and with a very high likelihood of success. On top of that, you want to make sure that you don't get this huge age receivables on their books, aka you don't want them to have $50,000 in outstanding wages or legal fees billing up on their side before you pay them. Ideally, you only, use them for $2,000 and maybe they only had to have that outstanding for 2 weeks and then you close the deal and you get them paid right away. Something like that is a lot more palatable, a lot more digestible for, these partners at these law firms, especially if you're reaching out to top international law firms, right? If you're reaching out to some of the biggest 50 or 100 international law firms in the world, then trust me when I say they're not needing your business. And that's something I've certainly seen, especially on the legal end. I would say that closing down the law firm, if I was doing it alone, again, I had help with one of the individuals on my team, and you might get that help too if the individuals on your team are really motivated. But had I not had help from the individuals on my team, I would say the law firm is tougher to close down. It's why Dan Pena, which, side note, I've actually dropped out of the mentee program. I could talk about that in a different video if you like. But at the seminar, Dan Pena made it pretty clear that you should close the accounting firm first and the law firm second. Now, I'm shooting this on January 18th, actually exactly 2 months to the day in which I left the seminar. So at this point, I actually have closed down the law firm, whereas in the accounting firm side, we're speaking with multiple national accounting firms, as well as one Big Four accounting firm. And so we ideally are going to close with the Big Four. We'll see. I think we'll probably close with one of the Big Four accounting firms, or we'll close with a second tier accounting firm. But my point is because I had the help, I was able to get the law firm closed down pretty damn quickly and easily. But generally speaking, I would try to close down the accounting firm first, and then you're able to say, hey, look, we just closed down E&Y, which, by the way, we're not going to be working with E&Y. We have a conflict with E&Y, but that's one of the Big Four accounting firms, right? So you would say to the law partner or the law partners, hey, just want to let you know that this is our board, and obviously you want to have a kick-ass board. This is our chairman. We're now, we have an engagement letter signed by both behalves to work with E&Y or to work with a Deloitte, right? So if you have one of those top-tier accounting firms, that's credibility, and that's going to really, you can use that as leverage, you could say, to lock down the law firm. I know for me, now that I'm in the last week of discussion with a whole bunch, honestly, literally there's about a dozen accounting firms that want our work. We're only really in discussions with 4 or 5 of those accounting firms, and even of those, it's probably down to 2 or 3. But you bet your sweet ass, I'm going to be letting them know, and I have let 1 or 2 of the accounting firms already know, hey, just want to let you know, we just closed with an international law firm yesterday. They can't help but ask, what law firm? And then I tell them, and I'm not going to share here on a public video like this, but I tell them, hey, we closed with so-and-so law firm. It's a respected law firm, so that gives us credibility, and it's only further stacking the deck in our favor, right? So this is how you close. You get the domino effect, and this is why I think Dan Pena's system is so genius, is because you get the chairman, then you get the rest of your board, and then you get your accounting firm, then you get your law firm. By the time you're going after the money, which I'm going to be doing here real soon, I'm actually in conversation with a host of bankers already, but once it really comes time to get the money, it's a lot easier to do so when you say, hey, look at our board, look at our chairman, look at our accounting firm, look at our law firm, look at our due diligence checklist, look at our acquisition musts, look at our strategy, look at the management team we're going to be putting in place on the individual level, which is something you have to work out as well. Look at the financial projections that we have about how we're going to be able to pay back this loan. right, which is something else we're working on right now internally, and that's probably why you want a financial guy on your team. This isn't something Dan Pena, as a side note, believes in as much, the financial projections, but it's something that bankers certainly like, credit officers certainly like. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself because this is about closing down a law firm, so I'll get back on track. Look, at the end of the day, man, or woman, the gender neutral here, but it's about knowing why your business is a winner. Okay, I would try to get down on paper 50 reasons, and you probably won't find 50. I actually know for me, I don't have 50 reasons why our business is going to win, but I have 8 or 10 incredible reasons why, right? And that's the key. You need to be persuasive. So think of all the reasons why your business endeavor is going to work. Not why it probably will work, not why you hope it'll work, why it will work. And this is, as a side note, something I've trained some of the other individuals on my team to do. And also, as a side note, bring your team with you in the final stages of negotiations with the accounting firms and the law firms, right? So I've been conferencing in, on the accounting side, one of the partners that I have that has 44 years of experience at a Big Four accounting firm. And on the law side, I leveraged on a partner at one of the top 50 law firms in the world that's on my board as well, right? So you use these people, you conference them in when you're trying to close, but then also make sure that you guys come into that meeting on a unified front. This is so important. I actually had with one of the smaller accounting meetings about 2 weeks ago, one of the individuals on my team, he showed a little bit of doubt, which if you've studied Dan Pena stuff, and if you just know about leading, you never share doubt as a leader, right? And in a persuasive process, you never show doubt. Why would you, right? You can talk about risks and how you're going to get rid of those risks. So it's not about not talking about the things that could go wrong, but it's not showing doubt. There's a difference between talking about problems and how you're going to make sure they don't come to light, and how to ensure that potential problems never become real problems. Do that. Talk about the potential risks and how you're going to be sure that they never happen, but don't share doubt. Don't talk about how we hope we succeed. Say we will succeed, because you have to have that mentality. As an entrepreneur, as a business person, as certainly as a startup that's trying to get people to believe in you, you better be certain you're going to win. And if you're not certain, you better go back to the drawing board, right? So what I'm really getting at, though, is show up to the meeting with a unified front where everyone in that meeting is of that mentality. And if they can't get on that mentality, I wouldn't bring them to the meeting. Personally, I don't need a guy with me. I don't care how many years of experience he has, how good his resume is. I'll let his resume be a resume on our executive summary if he isn't certain about this being successful. And so what happened when I had one of the individuals that joined me on one of the meetings on the accounting side, where we were kind of getting close to wrapping up that, and we haven't yet, for the record, we have all these accounting firms bidding with us, but it was a meeting where we could have, if we wanted, potentially closed. Well, when he showed a little bit of doubt, trust me when I said, I called him afterwards and I used the old sandwich thing where you give a compliment, you give him criticism, and then you give him a compliment, right? It's one of those old school ways of giving constructive criticism. But I basically told him, hey, look, super thankful to have you on the call. Thanks a ton for your time. Want to let you know, however, we cannot allow ourselves to express doubt in the future in these interviews. So if you ever have any doubts, talk to me about it. But we talk about doubts internally, never externally, right? If you have a doubt, you talk to me about it and we'll square it away. But never share your doubts externally, especially in these interviews. He got it. He came back on the next meeting. He never shared any doubts. And the rest is history, right? We have tons of these accounting firms competing with each other. We've locked down an international law firm. We've done this all in under 2 months, and that's included 2 weeks of Christmas and New Year's. So really, we've done it all, built a chairman, board, locked down a top law firm, and have a Big Four accounting firm as well as top national accounting firms competing for a business. So you can do that as well.